Chris I see, because like I would imagine Chicago at some point probably wants to host a Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's the last time they hosted as well, a Super Bowl, but so like people,
They've never.
but people, oh, they never really? Okay.
Either way,
People like after last year they were saying that. I mean, one, San Francisco, it's kind of dumb right now, but like two, everything was happening in San Francisco, and then the game is at Levi's. So
It's
just
just closer to San Jose.
yeah. Really?
Yeah.
It's a pleasant surprise. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
What's up? Back. Let me know if you're good. Good. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Good to see everyone again. We'll start with the opening statement from Coach Brennan, and then we'll take questions. Coach.
He's already ready. He's going preemptive hand raise. Like, no, I'm getting in on this. Well, it's good to see everybody. It's been a while since we had a chance to catch up with y'all. What an exciting weekend for Arizona athletics. I know baseball had a couple really good wins on the road, and softball was awesome. I got to see them play on Sunday and Thursday. Beach volleyball had a great weekend here. Swimming and diving at the Big 12 championships. Our indoor track championships for the Big 12. We had a great day out there, and Coach Dubs is building that program. It's pretty exciting. And then the basketball game. And I'm hopeful you guys were either there or saw it. But in my 2 years of going to games here, that was the best atmosphere I've seen. It was really, really electric, really, really cool. And so I know everyone's getting ready. So don't keep us here too long because we got to get ready for tonight. So we've got a big game on campus tonight. Pretty exciting. But there's a lot going on here. We got the game day enhancements to Casino del Sol Stadium. I'm sure you guys want to talk about that. We're really excited about what that's going to look like and what that's going to mean for our program. And then I love where our football team's at right now. We've been attacking the work. The new kids are getting, brought into the fold by the team, the new members of the team from the portal and the high school players that joined us early. They've been really aggressive out in the community through Beyond Football. And also, just if you guys ever get a chance to come down here on a Sunday and see just the magic of next level football, I think the parents can be a little bit crazy sometimes, but the kids are having so much fun, and our players are doing such a great job. And I think that's something that's really important to me. It's important to our program, just how invested we are in the Tucson community, and how many opportunities we have a chance to have touch points or meet people or be out there. And our players have just done a fantastic job with that. So we're excited about where we're at. We start spring ball in about 3 weeks. I think that's right. Yeah, 3 weeks. It'll be here before we know it. But I love the way our team is attacking this offseason. I love the fact that we're moving forward as a coaching staff, with almost everybody here. I think that retention piece, the consistency of leadership, you guys have heard me talk about how important I believe that is. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And then today's a season ticket, go on sale. So let's go. Let's go, man. It's time. It's time to help us build this monster in Tucson that we're now in going on year 3. We have a Heisman caliber quarterback returning and Noah Fafita, the leading touchdown passer in the history of Arizona football. There's so many good things happening here right now. And once you guys get a chance to see some of the roster that we've built through spring practice, I think people are going to be even more excited about the 2026 Wildcats. So what do you got for me?
Thank you, Coach. Justin and then Michael.
So not only did you get a extension, but your coordinators also got it. Can you just explain the importance of that and also having such a large salary pool as well?
I think that's huge. I think in the world of college football right now, when you see how many people are moving every offseason, players, coaches, all of that, I think that's one of the things that presents the greatest challenge in my mind of building a consistent, sustainable winning program here at Arizona. And I was really appreciative of the commitment from our administration that gave us a chance to keep those coaches here and to keep all of our coaches here, right? Because everybody was signed to new contracts. And so I think that speaks to the belief they have in us and the fact that we have shown progress in terms of what we are building with Arizona football.
Michael and Co.
I know you might not be totally, completely done building the roster yet, but what is your assessment of how the portal went for you, both in terms of outgoing and incoming players?
I think we feel great about the players that we have coming in, and I'm excited for the players that left. They're going to find, they've already found good opportunities, and that's going to be a great thing for them. I think that's what you want. I think, I want every player that comes and plays at Arizona to have a great experience being a part of our program. How much they play or not, right, is really up to them. Like, we make the determining decisions, but at the end of the day, how they perform in practice decides who plays in the games. That's the reality of it. And it's a magical thing. Now, they might not tell it to you because you're in the media, but if you put kids in a room and you say, who's the best player? They're pointing to the best player. They won't BS each other on that because everybody in the room knows who the man is. You know what I mean? So I do feel good about the people that we've added. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to get on the field and actually get playing football and get practicing and say, oh, this guy looks good, or I'm excited about this guy, or this young player looks like he has a chance to help us this year. So that's coming obviously 3 weeks from now. But the way they've been competing in the offseason, the job Coach Carroll and his staff is doing with them has been really, really good.
Go on, Chris.
You touched on the next level football program thing. A lot of incoming freshmen are there coaching the young kids, but also I saw Noah was there. Him among the other veterans and stuff, what does that mean just for those guys to be there kind of, out of their way and just kind of working with the community?
I think Noah Fafita is the best story in college football. He's chosen to stay. He's chosen to not take the money and run. He's chosen to show up for the city of Tucson, for the University of Arizona, for this program, for these teammates, for this coaching staff. It's a choice that he makes every day. And now, I will tell you about Noah with the next level football. He takes that stuff serious. And it was funny because he now has his younger brother, Dash, coaching with him. And there was a little bit back and forth between Dash. There's a little bit of the coaches were getting on each other's case a little bit in that championship game yesterday. But the funny part is Noah's team always wins also, which is, also a funny thing. But we love having all the kids here. We love because we get to see the parents and we get to see the fans and we get to say hi. And it's a really friendly, fun environment for those, and for a lot of those young people, it's a great introduction to the game of football.
Chris and then Brian.
Aaron Knotts and Andrew Morgan, super green. Well, Andrew has some history with the program, but both pretty green to the program. And as the portal's opening up, just what does that say about the ability to have the portal class that you had? What does that say about kind of the culture, the camaraderie within the locker room that you guys are able to build that class with such a new front office?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, I'm really excited about those guys being here. We've talked about them some, but I'm excited about AK being here. I'm excited about Andrew being here. I think it's going to be, we've added some others too, and I think there's going to be, that's going to be a really good part of our program. But with the players that we were able to bring in, I think that really speaks to also our coaching staff, right? Because you still have to recruit those players, even though they're transferring from somewhere. You still have to do a good job. And then on top of that, our players have to do a good job when they're here. And I think that does speak to the culture. I think that does speak to what it feels like to be a part of this football team, because when those players come here, and those visits are shorter too. So you got to get a lot done in a small window, right? Like we got back from the bowl game on the 3rd and the players started showing up that night because we only had until the 16th, so it's pretty hectic. But our players did a great job of making those guys feel what this Ohana is all about, like feel what this brotherhood is all about. And I think a lot of times those players in the portal, they're looking for that. They're looking for a place where they know it's going to feel good to walk into the building every day. They know that they got to make the plays to play. They understand that. That's football, right? But how is it going to feel? What kind of experience am I going to have with the teammates and the coaching staff that's there? And I think everybody did a fantastic job putting that together.
Brian and Justin.
How much involvement did you have in the discussions about moving the sideline to the other side, and what are the impacts with that?
I would say quite a bit.
And why do you think that matters?
Okay, so it started 2 years ago. I'm not sure she's going to like me telling the story, but I was standing with Desiree on the game at Kansas State. And our sideline was next, the student section was on our sideline. And her and I were talking about the old Pac-12 rule where you couldn't have the student section on the visiting team's sideline, right? But in the Big 12, that's not a rule. And so, like right behind me, the students were all over me. Like, they found really creative things to say about my mom, my sister, everything, and they were relentless.
And this was pregame?
This was pregame. We hadn't even played yet, And I was talking to Desiree. I was like, golly, all right, man, yeah. And so then at that point, Desiree and I started talking about what it would be like to put the visiting team with the Zona Zoo. Because the Zona Zoo is one of the best parts about coming to game day here, right? They're just rowdy, they're having a great time, add incredible energy to the environment. I was like, well, maybe we can turn some of that on the opponent. That'd be fun. And then I think also just like the lights and the new scoreboard, like just all that stuff. I think everything that they're trying to do is like, how do we make this a better game day for our fans and for our teams that have to compete in Casino del Sol Stadium. So I think it's going to be awesome.
Justin and Michael.
You've been very complimentary about Noah Fafita. I think this is the first time since he's been the starter that he's had the same coordinator in back-to-back seasons. What do you think, a full year with Seth and then now the offseason, how do you think that's going to prepare him for maybe a better year?
I think that's going to be great for him. I think that the consistency of just also like Seth's coaching style, and him and Noah have a fantastic relationship, right? There's a ton of trust built there. And I think that's one of the ways that you have a chance to really help a player like maximize his potential is by when there's a lot of real trust between the player and the coach. And so I think that part of it is going to be really, really good for him. And Noah's, first of all, he's just such a football junkie, and he's like, it's so important to him, and he's worked so hard and studies so much. And I think when you combine that with the great coaching he's getting from Seth and their relationship, I think you do have a chance for an outstanding season from him.
Michael and Cohen.
So you had great success last year bringing in players who had experience, whatever level that was, right? A lot of snaps. And you did that a lot with this year's class, but you also had some players who were kind of more in that pedigree potential category, like, for example, the kids you brought over from USC. How do you decide when it's worth the risk if they don't have that, that experience on their resume?
That's a great question. I think part of it is getting to know them, if there's previous history and getting to know them. And so when we do that, we kind of look at it as if we're taking a first or second year player who's like still a freshman to us because he hasn't played yet, but he has been in a program and he has played in some games and he has had some reps, some high level reps in some competitive situations, right? And so you're saying the talent and the character of the kid is worth the risk, so to speak. And you're trying to mitigate those risks always with every player you bring into the program, but that's how you look at it.
Cohen and Jordan.
The program's had an increased presence at the NFL draft the last couple of years, especially at the Combine. Did you have a chance to watch the trio at the Combine this last weekend, and then also kind of how do you feel about the just increasing presence of this program on a national perspective?
Well, I think that's the goal, right? I mean, that's the goal, is to give as many players that come through here a chance to play in the National Football League. And I think it was great to see what those three guys did at the Combine. You know what I mean? I was just so proud of them, so happy for them. It was really, really impressive. And I think that's one of those things that, again, those are three really special kids. Those three kids chose to stay here when so many high-profile programs in college football tried to pay them to leave. But those guys chose the University of Arizona over and over and over again, and I love them for it.
Jordan and Chris.
What does Noah's presence do for the rest of the quarterback room, but especially for a guy like Oscar coming in as a freshman?
I think the best thing he does is that he's one of those guys that every single day, as a leader, he models the way, right? Like how he goes about his work, how he goes about his training, like all those things, like the consistency of him doing that is something that those players, and then obviously he's played good football, so when they're like, whoa, well that's a path to, he's showing me, like if I handle things as, like Noah does, I can have a chance to play at the level he's played at, right? The first team all conference quarterback we've had at Arizona in 50 years. And there's been a lot of really good quarterbacks play here, right? So I think that part of it for Oscar, but for all those, because there's multiple young quarterbacks in that room, you know what I mean? And so they all have the benefit of being around Noah and learning from him.
Chris and Justin.
I felt like there were a couple of position rooms that you really targeted in the portal, tight end, defensive back in particular, but just what was your biggest focus in the portal? What were you looking for with those guys that you picked up?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it. Like we knew that we were losing good players in those position groups, right? And so, what does that look like in terms of like, who are we bringing into this family? What does the football look like? What kind of people are they, right? When they're here, how do they mesh with the staff? How do they mesh with the players? That kind of thing. You're always trying to find the best players that can like add the highest value to your team, always. You know what I mean? But you also got to make sure that they're going to fit with us, and they're going to be a good vibe with the football team, a good culture fit. And so that's what you're trying to identify as you go through the process.
Justin and then Brian.
Overall, what are your impressions of the upcoming schedule, all the teams that you're facing, especially BYU in week 2?
Yeah. I feel like we've known about that one for a while, that was going to land there, I think. But I think the exciting thing about it is you got a big-time football game, week 2. And the awesome part about it for me is you guys will talk about it for the next 9 months, and I won't talk about it until after we play NAU.
To add to that, just going through the Big 12 gauntlet for a couple of years now, what do you think about just the league as a whole?
I think the league is really tough. I've said this a lot of times. I think like top to bottom, it's the toughest league because everyone's good. Everyone's good, and like that part of it is just every week. It doesn't matter what the records are. Every week you're going to play somebody who has really high level talent. They're extremely well coached, and if you're playing on the road, you're going to play in an incredibly challenging venue.
Michael and then Chris.
As Chris alluded to, you did a good job of addressing needs in the portal, tight end, defensive back, offensive line, wide receiver. No defensive tackles, though, in that portal group. How do you feel about the group that you have coming back? Do you have enough big bodies?
Yeah, you always need more big bodies. You guys have heard me say that before. But we do feel good about that group. I think because I think one of the guys that was, did not play a ton last year, we've really seen him have a tremendous offseason. That's Big Zach. You know what I mean? And so we're excited about that. We're excited about getting out to practice. Obviously, in the D-line space, we get Trey Smith back, right? From injury. Like there's a lot of pieces that are there that we feel good about. And then we did add, some big bodies. They're just young. You know what I mean? And so that part of it is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Keatran and Kaisi and some of those guys get going. And again, you don't know until you actually get to play football, and we're not playing football yet. But 3 weeks from now, we'll start to have a better idea what that looks like.
Chris and then Justin.
Super early, but are there any of the early enrollees that have kind of stood out to you just through strength and conditioning so far?
Like the freshmen, you mean? It's a really fun group of guys. Like that part of their energy is amazing. I think Prince is the one that is like, you guys are going to love talking to because he's got this big, huge smile and all kinds of energy. But I think those guys, they're drinking out of a fire hose. It's happening really fast. So as we go, I'll probably have a little more information for you. But we're excited about those guys. It's a really good group of guys. The 2 young receivers we're excited about. We think they're going to be really good football players here. The defensive linemen, like those people, those defensive pieces that we added, we're excited about. Obviously we have high expectations for Oscar. Whenever that hits for him in his career. But it's fun to have them here because I do think it's really hard when freshmen show up here in the summertime, and they get a couple weeks of training, some summer school, and then training camp hits, and that's a whole new experience for them. And then 3 weeks into training camp, school starts, and that's all of a sudden, another big part of their life. And then you play a game. So, I do think the ones that are able to join us right now, I think is helpful.
Our last 3 will be Justin, Brian, and Michael.
Guys like Trey Smith and Bounds, are they going to spend the spring rehabbing?
We're going to be smart with them. You know what I mean? So, like I've told you guys many, many times, myself, the coaching staff, we don't make any medical decisions. So whatever Geronimo and his team and our team docs tell us, then that's how we'll proceed with them.
Brian and Michael.
Do you have any available roster spots that you're saving for after the spring for guys who maybe didn't already sign out of the portal?
I would say it's probably a little bit more in kind of the walk-on space. You know what I mean? The portals have been pretty exhausted. Now, people will still go through spring, and I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of if you lose a player during spring practice or something like that, just have a need to try and fill with some spots. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But
You didn't see like a lot of guys opt to just not sign, like the higher profile ones that were in there?
if we're not chasing them, I'm not wasting my time on them. You know what I mean? And then with people that choose not to do that, then like where are they at with their progress towards degree and their eligibility and all that stuff, right? Because that becomes also an issue.
We'll finish up with Mike.
Has Desiree ever said no when you've come to her and asked her? Sure.
Yeah, lots of times. I think that's just part of it. You know what I mean? I think every head coach is always asking for something from the administration. It's not specific to football. Everybody, and because everyone's trying to win. Everyone's looking for a competitive advantage. And so, that never stops.
You've talked a lot about the alignment that you feel like this football program has with the athletic department. Is that in good shape?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was, I talked a little bit about it in my opening statement, but just like being able to keep the coaching staff and, when other schools were coming after people in our building and making sure that we were able to make it good enough for them to be here, for them wanting to stay here. I think that part of it is what makes it a lot of fun, is that we do have a really great group of people in this building, like leading this program, and we want to do everything we can to keep that consistency.
That's our time for today. Thank you, guys.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Bear down.